Welcome, welcome, one and all. This is Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Crouse Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse athletics. My name is Brent Axe, and we are live here after a 10-point win for Syracuse, though that final score would certainly not indicate how Cornell just would not go away in this game. Nothing comes easy for Syracuse basketball this season, and that was certainly the case once again at the JMA Wireless Dome. A very slow start for the Orange, but they go on a huge run to end the first half. Cornell actually played pretty well in the second half. Yes, they won the second half by a point, 44-43, and certainly did enough to hang in there. They were kind of like a hang now, irritating enough but not good enough to get the win. But Syracuse, certainly some interesting things to talk about that they did in this game, some lineups we saw in this game, some lineups we didn't see in this game, what Adrian Autry had to say after this one as we'll play you that clip coming up here shortly, and of course some great feedback from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider, I'm certainly thankful for you signing up and having the ability to text me directly. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders get group text from me, but they can individually text me anytime. Your questions, comments, thoughts, opinions, as plenty of those came in during Syracuse's win over Cornell, and we'll be doing it for Syracuse football, of course, as the season comes to an end, but there's so much more to come with football, guys. The transfer portal, signing day. There is no offseason in football, right? Syracuse has a bowl game coming up. We're not sure where yet, but prep for that, and one more game to come after Miami, no matter what happens at that in that game on Saturday at the Dome against the top 10 Miami Hurricanes coming in, and Cam Ward and company coming to the Dome. So we'll have our football post-game show and plenty to come, and our Syracuse Sports Insiders get direct text message access to me for just $3.99 a month. You can try it free for 2 weeks. We'd be very thankful if you did so. JoinSubtext.com/Syracuse Sports is the site to sign up. You can also text the word orange to 315-847-3895. So I'll tell you what Adrian Autry is thankful for, guys, his freshmen. The young guns, Donnie Freeman, 23 points, 12 rebounds. Elijah Moore breaking out with 5 3-pointers in this game. He had 19 points and 7 rebounds. The maestro, Peter Masturovic, all 3 freshmen in the game in crunch time, late. Autry trusting his freshmen. We'll play that clip from Autry here in a second. He was pretty irritated in his opening statement at his press conference, and at times in his press conference for sure. But the maestro coming in as well, grabbing 5 rebounds, playing hard out there. He gave Syracuse 18 solid minutes, only scored 2 points. Nice dunk for him, but really I mean, it's hard not to compare him to like Marek Dolezaj or Christoph Ojanot. You know, I don't want to just, characterize all the European guys that are on the Syracuse roster, but they all just seem to have that trait in common. They're likable, they play hard, they get the game, smart players, just gritty, and Peter out there really helping Syracuse. But man, to see Donnie Freeman have that breakout offensive game, we've seen Donnie rebound a lot this year, even in games when he's not contributing offensively. You look at the box score, he'll have often in double digits in rebounding, but he really had to step up on the offensive end tonight, had to play the 5 at times tonight with Eddie Lampkin struggling with his back injury. He did not start this game tonight. Jair Davis was in the starting lineup for Lampkin. We'll talk about that coming up a bit as well, but Donnie Freeman showed what he can do, and Freeman is a guy I've been saying on this show and other places, when the light bulb comes on, you're going to see why he was the highest rated recruit since Carmelo Anthony, top 10 recruit overall by every major recruiting service out there, why he's being discussed as a first round NBA draft pick, if not first round, certainly a draft pick in the 2025 NBA draft, and why he could be a one and done guy. I think he saw, and we saw, a lot of those traits in his game tonight. There's still a lot he's got to work on in his game, shot selection and just kind of where they put him in the offense. They want him to roam free, to create. He can shoot. He's got a beautiful stroke. I think they've got to run some more plays for him direct to the basket to take advantage of that. But, I mean, it speaks for itself what he did. 23 and 12 tonight, and everybody's kind of shaking their head like, okay, this is the Freeman we heard about. He's a freshman. He's finding his way, just like any freshman would, talented or not, no matter what your ranking is, you still have to get used to a lot of things in the college game. But Freeman was aggressive tonight. He is so smooth and fluid on the boards and so confident there. And I asked Donnie about that afterwards, and he said when he came to college, he knew he needed a niche. He needed something he could hang his hat on. And rebounding is just something that's always come to him naturally. And you see it in great rebounders. They just have that trait. They know how to go after the ball. It's a lot of want to rebound. Half of rebounding is effort and heart and desire, and he's just got it there. His offensive game is rounding into form, and Freeman really stepped up when Syracuse needed him to tonight in a number of ways, as did Elijah Moore, who plays 23 minutes in this game, 19 points, 5 of 7 from three-point range, grabs 7 rebounds. And look, guys, we just have to say it here. The starting backcourt for Syracuse basketball needs to be J.J. Starling and Elijah Moore. It's time. Jaycon Carlos, I've said it a few times here on this show. I've said it other places. And again, I'm just talking from a basketball standpoint here. This is nothing personal by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're asking me to analyze who the best players on the court are, it's not Jaycon Carlos. And Autry defended him again tonight. And all the things that Autry said in his press conference about what they brought in Carlos to do, he's not doing. Carlos had a -10 over-under out there tonight. I mean, he didn't put up any numbers. And I think and there's another player that fits this description too, but 19 minutes, he had 2 points, 1 of 4 shooting, no assists. Your point guard, who was brought in to distribute the ball, did not have any assists. And again, Autry was frankly making excuses for him in the press conference about what other people aren't doing, which affects what Carlos does. No, he's just not a player who is capable to play these kind of minutes, certainly to be a starter on this level. Can he have a role on this team? He absolutely can have a role on this team. But if they continue to put him out there as a starting point guard, you're just doing yourself a disservice. And I get it. Look, you want, and something that Autry said, to be fair, is he frees up JJ to be JJ, right? JJ Starling's at his best when he's a true 2. He's flowing. He feels like JJ had an awful shooting night tonight. But we know JJ's going to play, and JJ should play. He's a leader on this team, and everybody's going to have that bad night or two. JJ just had one of those nights, ball wasn't falling, but he's a guy you want on the court for a number of reasons, right? But if he's got to be the point, if he's got to distribute more, and he's got to run the show, then so be it. And another thing we saw tonight was Kyle Cuff get into the game. And as the kids say, I have receipts on this. So I didn't have to frame it in this way. I just had to ask about how Kyle played. I thought he gave Syracuse some quality minutes in this game, in the backcourt, numbers-wise. He only played 5 minutes. It felt like more than that, and a rebound and assists. He just had 2 points. It felt like Kyle Cuff played a lot more than 5 minutes in this game, but the 5 minutes he played and just giving JJ a little bit of a rest, coming in, he's that guy. We saw the spark that he provided off the bench for this team. He's quick. He can shoot the 3. He's a good defender. I don't understand why he hasn't been playing more to this point, and I was fully prepared to come into that press conference and say, listen, is Kyle Cuff still on this team? Because I don't understand why he's not playing. But tonight was the perfect representation of what he can do, and maybe it at some point will lap Carlos and do more of. He's not a starter. He is a pure off-the-bench energy guy, but he's a smart player. He's a veteran player, and I just don't understand why I haven't seen it to this point. Autry said he's been doing really well in practice, and as you'll hear in the clip we're going to play shortly, like, certainly I anticipate to see more Kyle Cuff if what Autry, in this case, doesn't see continues to happen here. So the freshmen were awesome. We're going to see more of those guys, not necessarily have 23 and 19 respectively in a game, but this is what you need out of freshmen. We talk so much about transfers these days, and you have to give that cushion for freshmen to get used to college life, get used to the college game, the speed of the game, all those things. But you're also, when you're McDonald's All-Americans and you're highly touted and you're highly rated, and we're in the one-and-done era, that didn't go away, right? The portal era, NIL, all this stuff, they're still one-and-done guys in basketball. As Donnie Freeman said about his rebounding, you got to find your niche. You got to find your strength and let the other parts of your game develop. Moore could shoot the rock, and he is not afraid to shoot the rock. He's got to work on his defense in terms of just fundamentally, but he plays hard, and he knows where to be on the court, and he just brings a presence to that backcourt. He's going to struggle. So if I'm going to sit here and say he needs to be in the starting backcourt, I and anybody else that agrees with me there kind of has to accept what comes with that, right? For everything that Carlos is not giving you right now, Carlos has been around the block a few times and brings a veteran presence, but he's just not producing. He's just not putting up any numbers. You can't have your point guard go out there and not have an assist. Now, he got pulled for certain reasons, and the lineup turned out to be what it was in the backcourt, but go back the last 3-4 games. He's just not producing. He's not literally doing what they brought him in to do. And Autry said at the presser tonight, we didn't bring him in to score 10, 12, 14 points. Nobody thought that. We thought you brought in a defensive player of the year in his conference from Hofstra and somebody that you got, if you're going to be labeled a distributor, which he was. I mean, we're not making this up. He had a great assist to turnover ratio at Hofstra. He did all these things at Hofstra, but it's just not clicking, and you're hurting yourself by putting him out there at this point. I hate to say it because I think they can carve out a niche and a role for him, but he's not the starting point guard. But if I'm going to say that, you have to accept whatever flaws are going to come with putting JJ at the point and putting Moore at the 2, right? Because that changes the dynamic of the backcourt. I think that means more Kyle Cuff, spelling more, or he could spell either. You don't really want Kyle Cuff being your 2, but there were times he came in for Moore tonight. There were some substitutions that Autry made tonight that were kind of head-scratching, to be honest with you, particularly when Moore was really rolling and was hot, and it didn't even come out to start the second half. And some other lineups where you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on there? I mean, I wrote a few down, and we'll go over them here in a second, but I did want to play that clip. So Adrian Autry, this is his opening statement at his press conference tonight. As you'll tell, as you will see here, pretty irritated.
Coming into this game, I thought we made some progress as a team in New York, and that wasn't the case today. We took steps backwards. Guys that are not going to play with heart, that are not going to do what we ask them to do, will not play. Moving forward, that's just the bottom line. All right. It's 6 games in, and obviously new team and all that, but they know what the expectations are, and right now they're not playing to those expectations. They're not playing to those standards. And, I don't know how many times we scored a basket and gave up a basket today. I just don't know how many times it happened. Again, defensively, I thought we made some progress after the first 2 games, last 2 games in New York. Today we just didn't have anything. We came out very sluggish. Eddie, he wasn't 100%. And he came in and gave us a big lift, impacting the game, not worrying about scoring. That's what he does. He came in, he impacted this game. Him, Peter, Lucas Taylor. I thought Kyle Cuff, those guys gave us great energy off the bench. And they came in and they just played. They played. They didn't worry about anything else. Until we get to that point, it's going to be up and down.
That's Adrian Autry, his opening statement, and later on he was asked I forget the exact question in the presser, but it was basically like, the names that you mentioned, how can they make that what they do contagious with this team? And he said to play them. And you heard the names he mentioned. Lucas Taylor deserves a big shout out for how he played in this game. He's such a good defensive player. He prides himself on defense. This game was in question until the end, guys. Nothing comes easy for Syracuse basketball this year. Lucas Taylor makes a big block, goes down the other end, Chapa with his 5th 3-pointer, and that finally gave Syracuse a little bit of an exhale here. Look, Cornell came in. Cornell, man, they're fun to watch because they just bomb it out. 12 of 40 from 3-point range. They took 43 pointers in this game. Syracuse was 5 of 13 from 3-point ranges. That is a team that continues to mostly struggle from the perimeter because Chapa had all 5 of those threes. But listen, I'm not trying to put words in Autry's mouth. And if I'm wrong about this, I will be the first person to admit I was wrong. But that was a not-so-subtle shot at Chris Bell and how Chris Bell played, didn't get back on defense. He wasn't the only one. I think Carlos fit that description, maybe a little bit of everybody. But here's what else I know. This team has started slow all year. There's like one game that has not happened. They got down 9-0 to Texas, if I'm not mistaken, and tied that game. Am I remembering that right? One of those two games in New York, they actually had a pretty decent start. But every other game this year, Lemoyne, Colgate, Youngstown State, this game, like this team just does not start well. And that's a pattern now. That's not just a fluky thing because, as Autry brought up there, guys getting used to each other and all that stuff. Autry called it out there. He sees it. Not that he didn't see it before, but now he's got to call it out. Now, that's the difference between a Boeheim and an Autry. Like, Boeheim would have named names. Autry didn't quite go there, but that's a not-so-subtle shot at a couple of guys, I think Chris Bell included. Like, get with the program in terms of doing what you need to do on the court, defensively, hustle, getting back on. And that improved. And Autry had to really tinker with the lineups tonight, guys. I mean, let's go through some of these. And he's been playing a lot of guys generally this year, but man, did he have to really mess with that lineup, I guess is not the right way to put it, but he had to really adjust the lineup. Okay, let's put it that way, with who he put out there and how he put them out there. I mean, I'm just going to go through some of these lineups and I'm not going to hit all of them, of course, just a few that were interesting to me. So at the 14-minute timeout, you had JJ, Carlos, Peter, Eddie, Chris Bell, right? Bell only played 18 minutes in this game. He had 5 points, 5 rebounds. Then, as the second half progresses, now you got a lineup of JJ, Chapa, Peter, Eddie, and Lucas. Eddie Lampkin, let's stop there and talk about Eddie Lampkin for a minute. Eddie Lampkin, so Autry admitted in postgame that the reason Jair Davis started was he wanted to try to give Eddie somewhat of a break in this game. Eddie's got back issues. Now, I asked Autry about that. Is this going to be a game-by-game thing where you're worrying about this? And Autry's response was that they think they've got it figured out. They've figured out kind of a treatment program, and I'm paraphrasing what he said here, but he doesn't think that's going to be the case. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on a podcast here, but anybody that's had back issues knows those things linger. And Eddie's had ongoing back issues here. So I do think this is going to be something that they're going to have to consider. God bless Eddie. The guy goes out there. He tried to play through it. He just didn't have it tonight. And I was wondering about it, the Texas Tech game, because that was the second of a back-to-back. Texas Tech, somebody that has that kind of back injury, it's going to be tough for him to gut that out. But now we're a few days past the Texas Tech game, and he still had the issue. And Autry admitted he did want to try to give him somewhat of a break. But Eddie tapped him on the shoulder, said, "Coach, put me in. I think I can help." But Eddie just didn't have it tonight. Didn't score. He had 3 rebounds in 9 minutes. And he plays hard. He brings an energy. He brings a passion out there. He has the right kind of attitude. But I think Autry he may even played him a little too much, to be honest with you. We didn't see McLeod in there. I don't think McLeod can keep pace in a game like this. That's why you didn't see him out there. He's just too slow in a certain case. So like we said, you had to put Donnie at the 5 at times and really mix up the lineup. So you had, once Eddie had to hit the bench, you had JJ, in comes Kyle Cuff, Peter, Lucas, Donnie Freeman. You had a Kyle Cuff, Elijah Moore backcourt at one point with Peter, Donnie. You had JJ, Lucas, Jair Davis out there a lot tonight. And shout out to Jair, solid effort, 8 points, 5 rebounds, and a couple of great moves around the hoop. Gave Syracuse what you needed from him in that case. And this isn't even all of them. Here's another: JJ, Elijah, Donnie, Lucas, Peter. Right? Like, there's so many jigsaw puzzles that I can make with the Syracuse lineup at this point. And maybe Autry's finally finding the guys, separating those that want to play to his words, the orange standard, and those that just aren't at this point. And look, I don't want to try and decipher these things. I don't speak Instagram. Kids post stuff on Instagram all the time. But there was an interesting post that Chris Bell put on his Instagram story, and who knows why he put that out there. And here, I'll pop it up on the screen. And again, you never know with these things. I'm just trying to read some tea leaves here, but let me just throw it up there. It's part of the conversation now. You kind of have to, like, why put that on social media after clearly your coach called you out and he's frustrated. And so here, let me show it to you here. So this was on his Instagram story. So you can see the headline here. It says, "This going to age very well." And in the picture is Chris Bell, Judah Mintz, Malik Brown, Quadir Copeland. Now, obviously, what do three of those names have in common? They're no longer at Syracuse, right? So I'm not sure why Chris Bell chose after this game to post that. I didn't have a chance to talk to him about that. I didn't run into Chris Bell in the locker room afterwards. He was in and out pretty quick. I think he did talk to some people. I don't think he skipped out on anything. But look, he got called out by his coach. And we'll see as a leader on this team how he responds to that. They need his 3-point shooting. Like, let's not make any mistake about it here. Like, this team, as frustrating as Chris Bell can be at times, they need him. Like, you don't have enough perimeter shooters. This team is in the 300s in the country in 3-point shooting right now. Chapa can't do it all. He did tonight. Syracuse had 5 threes. He had all 5 threes. Lucas Taylor took a few, and JJ can hit the 3. You don't necessarily want him taking a bunch because he's just a more effective player driving the post and doing what he does on the off. Again, JJ had an awful offensive night. 3 of 17. 3 of 17. This team could not hit water if it fell out of a boat to start this game. They were 5 of 26 at one point early in the first half. Some of that was just some bunnies they missed and some good opportunities that didn't fall. A lot of it was shot selection, though. And Autry called that out in that clip. They weren't smart. They weren't moving the ball. And, you know, when you're missing like that, everybody tries to be the guy that breaks the funk. Tries to be the guy to get you out of it, right? This team doesn't have a lot of perimeter shooters, right? So you need Chris Bell. So hopefully he gets the message. Everybody has kind of that bad night, but I don't know, I thought that was an interesting thing to put on your Instagram story. 15 minutes after you lose a game, the manner in which you did and the manner in which you played. But again, trying to decipher these things, it's like the Da Vinci Code at some point, right? I just, you know, I'm an old guy who I do social media, but you know what players 20 some of the stuff my daughter posts on social media, I need a translator. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to post after the game, right? Maybe just a picture he came across on his Instagram and just, you know, put it on his story. I don't know. I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to crack that code. I just thought it was interesting. Okay. Let's hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. You guys were certainly passionate throughout this game tonight. Was there any other? I think there was a couple more points I wanted to make before we got to that. No, that's pretty much everything, right? I just think that Eddie Lampkin injury is going to be interesting to monitor. Back injuries are tricky. Autry says they think they got a handle on it, but the fact that he felt that this was a game that Eddie could, in essence, take a break and try and give him some relief. Start Jair Davis. Don't make him play the big minutes he's been playing. But nothing comes easy for this team. That is telling, guys. I can't believe we're 6-7 games into the season, and I've just kind of become used to it. They kind of are what they are. We're so used to Syracuse having a couple games in that non-conference where you win by 25, you empty the bench, in come the walk-ons, the human victory cigars, as we like to call it. And they have not had one of those games this year. Lemoyne, Colgate, Youngstown State, all gave them hell, right? You knew Texas and Texas Tech were going to be tough games. This game, Cornell fits that category. They were in it to the end. I never felt threatened, if that's a word. Like, I felt like Lemoyne could have won that game. I certainly felt like Colgate could have won that game. And Youngstown State pushed him to overtime, right? I never felt like Cornell was going to get over that hump just because Syracuse had enough answers, but it certainly was tense. I mentioned Cornell won the second half. There's only 2 more games on the slate that, and one of our Syracuse Sports Insiders asked about the next game here, so I will get to that here shortly, but what are the games left on the schedule that would fit the category of, well, this is one that's, and I'm not even asking for like a 30-point blowout. I'm asking for a game where a program on the level of Syracuse, who puts these teams on the schedule for a reason, goes out and has a relatively easy night, right? Albany fits that description. Bucknell, look, Bucknell's been a tournament team in recent years. They come from a tough league. I wouldn't put them in that category, but theoretically, that's the game you schedule before you get into ACC play full time, starting with Wake Forest on New Year's Eve. Syracuse has Notre Dame on the 7th. They do have an ACC game before the full slate starts, but that's it. You've pretty much gone through the list of teams that fit that category with the exception of 2, right? But speaking of the upcoming schedule here, that's where Gabe starts us off here with our Syracuse Sports Insider thoughts, questions, insight, and analysis. who says, only 2 cupcakes left on the schedule, Brent, Albany and Bucknell, as we were just talking about. And then he says this, just tell us how you feel about Tennessee coming up. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about that. I've watched Tennessee a couple times this year. There's a reason they're a top 10 team. They're a well-coached team that's at Tennessee. Now, I know Syracuse has been away from the Dome, but they had friendly confines in the Barclays Center, and 2 games they were in. And the very least should have split in New York, didn't do it. Now, Tennessee would be a monumental non-conference win if somehow they can put together their best game and do it. But I don't feel good about that one. The way this team's playing now, the fact that that game is next, the defensive lags they're having, their lack of perimeter shooting, you need to hit threes to beat Tennessee. Like, you've got to find a way to get some consistent perimeter scoring. That's why you're going to need Chris Bell to be on his game here. So I'm not feeling good about that one. Not going to lie. Texas and Texas Tech, I didn't feel good about just because of the way Syracuse was playing, but they proved us wrong. And actually, as you heard Brent Axe saying, he's right. They did make progress in New York. I don't like this matchup. I don't like I don't like anything about this game. Nothing about this game. Like, I would take a very deep breath before they play Tennessee coming up on December 3rd, which is their next game after a short break for Turkey Day. From Vern, who says the difference in this game is free throws for the Orange. If we had another 50% night, this would only be a 2-point game. My main man, Vern. Now, you know how Uncle Brent feels about free throws. I've heard they matter. 17 out of 20. I don't think that was the difference tonight. They just took care of business in a category they should. I thought the difference was Autry's willingness to let his freshmen lead the way, to let Peter be in the lineup when it mattered late in the game. Donnie, Elijah, those are guys that aren't always on the floor when it matters, particularly Elijah and Peter. Donnie's certainly been out there, but even Donnie's been off the floor with better lineups. You let Lucas Taylor ride instead of Chris Bell, which absolutely was needed and necessary in this game tonight. You got Kyle Cuff in there. You played the right guys. So I think Autry's willing. I didn't like all his substitutions. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we can go through those with a fine-tooth comb. I'm generally not a fan of how he's been subbing this year. But tonight, you put Cuff in, you put the right guys in, you sent the right message. And I think from that statement we played, I think he walked away from this one saying, okay, I think I got a better idea of who the right guys are in the right spots. And if people don't step up the way they need to, go have a seat over here, young man. And guys, before you even ask, and I don't think I even have any questions on this from our insiders, with Chance Westry, if we see him, we see him. If we don't, we don't. No offense to the young man. I hope we do see him play for his sake. But I'm going to give Autry the benefit of the doubt on this. If Chance Westry could help this team, he'd be on the court. Now, I get it. There's been players and situations in recent years where you're like, what's going on here? Is it academics? Is it off the court stuff? Like, there is reason to be skeptical. I totally get that we've seen situations where you're like, why isn't that dude playing, right? I'm going to give Autry the benefit of the doubt. If Chance Westry was in game shape, remember, this guy's had 2 major knee injuries and then some sort of illness that has slowed him down this year. This team needs help. They need that spark. They need that guy that Autry was talking about to play in games like this. If Chance Westry could help this team, he'd be on the court. Flat out, period. Now, I might eat those words, but I'm going to give Autry the benefit of the doubt there. I understand why you guys ask the questions. I'm not saying I'm tired of your questions. I'm not. I totally get it. I'm just tired of just bringing, it's like, if it happens, it happens. It's not going to be the difference between whether this team's successful or not. Does that make sense? I hope he can find a role and contribute, and it's a long season. Guys, it's only Thanksgiving. Like, there's a long time to go here. I get what you're saying. This would be the time to kind of get him established and rolling, but if he's not in game shape, he's not in game shape. If he can't help the team, he can't help the team. Like, not everybody plays. There's a line you draw, and he just happens to be the guy on the other side of the line, right? I think it's that simple in this case. If I come across some more information or figure out that I'm wrong about that, then I'll say so. But I don't know, man. There's always that guy on the bench. Everybody's like, come save the day, right? I don't think that's the case here, but we'll see. We'll see if he gets in. I get the curiosity, but I also think we have to really take into consideration what this kid's gone through. Like, this is not just a high-rated recruit or a guy that's in we went through this. Boeheim would put a guy in the doghouse for no reason. I shouldn't say no reason, but maybe he didn't always agree with that reason, right? I understand all of that. With Chance, I'm going to give Autry the benefit of the doubt here. I might eat those words, but I don't think there's anything, put your, foil hats down here. He's just not ready to play. Not ready to play at the rate that they need him to. I'll take your word on that, Autry. I will take your word on that, and we'll see about that. Anyway, Mahdi says a Tennessee win can get Syracuse in the tournament. If they end up on the bubble, it's time for Autry to put the best guys on the floor, Freeman and Moore, looking better every game. From Frankie, who says it feels like Syracuse may have found the right combination, but now comes the hard part. Can they find consistency? Can they avoid those slow starts? Yes to Chapa and JJ being the starting backcourt. From Randy, I refuse to turn this into some kind of celebration for beating Cornell. I'm just not doing it. Congratulations for doing your job, Syracuse. My boss doesn't give me extra credit for doing my job. From Gary D says, I'm hopeful that Autry is finally seeing how the team moves better, plays faster, and the defense is more intense when, a little typo there, but when Carlos is not in the game. And Willie M says, this team feels like it has much more potential, even though the wins have been close. With how Ken Pom works, the huge blowouts last year killed us. Syracuse did cover the point spread there, as my good friend Mike McAllister joked about after the game. Doesn't that help your net ranking when you cover the point spread? If it's Syracuse, you hope it does, because that's part of the conversation here. It's not just who you beat, it's how much you beat them. I'm going to be fascinated to see the first net ranking comes out next week. Where is Syracuse? I don't know this off the top of my head, so I'm going to look it up while we're yapping about it here. I have not looked at the Ken Pom ratings in the last couple of days. Syracuse is 101 in Ken Pom, which gives you somewhat of a sense of where they'll be in the net ranking. But you beat Lemoyne by 4. You barely beat Colgate. You got all you could handle from Youngstown State. It would be better if you beat Texas and Texas Tech, but those are both, air quotes, quality losses, quad 1 losses for this team. You beat Cornell by 10. If Cornell ends up being an Ivy League champion or a good team in the Ivy League, maybe that helps you, but you got to blow teams out that you're supposed to blow out. That's why you put these teams on the schedule, right? And then you hold your own as best as you can against Tennessee. Georgetown isn't really going to help. Where are they in the Ken Pom ratings? They're right behind Syracuse at 105, right? So that's not going to be a huge win. That's just kind of a survive win, rivalry game type of thing. Maryland would be a huge win for this team on December 21st, but they're running out of those opportunities to grab a shiny, big time. Look at this non-conference win. Tennessee would fit all of those descriptions, but as I said earlier, and I could be dead wrong on this, not feeling good about that matchup at all, right? So that leaves Notre Dame, which is a conference game, but Notre Dame, Maryland, left on your schedule that would be non-conference games that really pop. And if you lose those kind of games, it just puts more pressure on you, and the margin for error in ACC play gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. So good points there from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. And I want to go back to Gary's point here. I swear I'm not picking on Carlos. I'm just analyzing what I see. But Gary's right on all fronts here. The team does move better. They do play faster, and the defense is more intense when he's not out there, which goes against the reason you brought him here. You brought him here to push the pace. He's not doing it. You brought him here because he's a good defender. Hasn't been a good defender. Players just blow right by him consistently, right? When teams make runs, what they have in common, I gave you the plus-minus number earlier. It was -10. It was -16 with Chris Bell on the court tonight, by the way, too. I mean, plus-minuses and everything. But I remember Jim Boeheim used to hate that stat, but it gives you a sense, right? What all those things unfortunately have in common is when Carlos is on the floor. Just watch. You're watching the games. You know it, and I know it. That's what it has in common. So they got a few days to think about it, but I don't think you can start him. I think you have to start JJ and Elijah Moore. And the starting lineup's not everything, right? But in this case, it is, because somebody is starting and getting, in this case, 18 minutes and wasn't even that effective, but getting too many minutes and getting an opportunity and a title that they haven't earned by how they're playing, right? And what you brought them in to do. And it's a fascinating case study of what you have to do in college sports these days. You build a roster, you take chances on elevating guys from Hofstra to Syracuse. It's working great with Lucas Taylor. And Lucas Taylor come from Georgia State, holding his own, playing great defense, giving you quality minutes. We'll see what happens when ACC play comes, but I'm not worried about him. He's a talented player. Jair Davis is holding his own, coming from Delaware to Syracuse. Carlos is not. At an important position. There's more scrutiny on that position, too, unfortunately for him, right? As a point guard, there's a lot of scrutiny there. It's the college basketball version of bringing in a quarterback for a certain reason. And if that quarterback is not moving the offense, he's throwing 3 picks a game, defenses can figure him out, like, you got to make a change, right? So we'll see what happens in the next matchup against Tennessee. But you know what we have before that? We have 2 things. First of all, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope you have an amazing day with your family, your friends, and those that you spend Thanksgiving with, even crazy Uncle Frank, who's going to be talking about politics the whole time. It wouldn't be Thanksgiving without Uncle Frank, right? However you guys celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope it is absolutely fantastic. And then Saturday, ooh, baby, here come the Hurricanes. Syracuse, Miami will have full post-game coverage, as always, on Syracuse football post-game, presented by Crouse Health. 3:30 kick, Saturday, ESPN. We'll see how Syracuse ends the season, either 9-3, which, boy, that everybody in the world would have taken that. I offered it to you before the season started. I think everybody would take 8-4 as well. 9-3 is a lot cooler, though, especially if you cap it off with a win over the Canes and ruin their Thanksgiving weekend. Miami's looking to clinch a bit in the ACC championship game, looking to stay in the college football playoff discussion, and Syracuse can sink their battleship if they win this game at the Dome on Saturday. So hope to see you on Saturday. If you're going to the game, say hello, send me a text if you're an insider, and I'll come by and say hello. Uncle Brent's going to be swinging by some tailgates before the game, so see Uncle Brent out there, say hello. Looking forward to seeing you guys on Saturday. Is a big game. This feels so big. This I can't remember a season-ending game as big as this. Really going back to McNabb's last game, which they trucked Miami. I keep thinking about 1992, though. Syracuse-Miami 92. Whew, Chris Gedney, 3 yards short, man. Whew. What a game. Miami was number 1 in the country. They had 127 in a row. Gino Torretta. Shout out to Gino Torretta, old school people. Remember Gino Torretta was finishing out a Heisman campaign? Whew, that was peak Miami, peak the U, right? Peak Syracuse in the Big East. Just, we don't get those games to finish out the season anymore. It's been a lot of Wake Forest and Boston College and Pittsburgh and a lot of blah, right? There's some important games, don't get me wrong. Syracuse had to beat Wake to get bowl eligible last year. So, yeah, that's nice. But this feels big. So we'll be all over it after the game. Looking forward to talking with you on Syracuse football postgame on Saturday. Next basketball broadcast, as we mentioned, Syracuse and Tennessee, coming up on December, what is that, Tuesday the 3rd? Where are we here? Yeah, Tuesday the 3rd. Do I have my dates right there? Let me just make sure we got that right. So that, look, that's ACC SEC Challenge. That's big time. That's Syracuse back in the spotlight. Frankly, they have not done well in the spotlight. You think of Maui last year. You think of some of the prime ESPN games you've played. The 2 games they just had in New York where they looked better but still lost. Syracuse has got to have a good showing in one of these big-time games. So that is Tuesday, December 3rd, 7:30 tip in Tennessee. Whew. Look out, Knoxville. Going to be a lot of orange in the building. We know that. So that'll be our next basketball post-game show. Thanks for hanging tonight. We always appreciate you guys. We are thankful for you, certainly, and thankful for our Syracuse Sports Insiders for being a part of that. Have a terrific Thanksgiving, everybody. We will talk to you again Saturday after the Orange take on Miami in football, and Tuesday when the Orange play a big one against Tennessee in Knoxville. This has been Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Crouse Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics.